Gunbot University.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Ask Me Anything between Kraken Futures and a community of Gunbot users. Gunbot is a trading algorithmic bot that helps with trading on spot markets, futures markets, margin, and you'll learn a lot about that today. And today we have with us Kevin Beardsley from Kraken Futures, along with two top traders in our beta group that use Gunbot for years, and myself, Professor Wally from Gunbot University. And I'd like to start it off and say, Kevin, thank you for having some time, a legitimate exchange, talking to a bot maker and their active users. So thank you, and let's start asking some questions after an intro.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for taking the time. We really appreciated the support and the competition that you guys ran on Kraken Futures. So it's been fantastic working with Gunbot and especially with Anon and Trashdog. Yeah, quick intro on myself. I've been in crypto since 2014. I started out at the Bitcoin Foundation where I was director of membership. Then I went to Elliptic, helped build out the first insured custodian for cryptocurrency. We then pivoted into transaction monitoring and investigation. So I worked pretty closely with law enforcement and most of the large exchanges on that for a while. Then I went to B2C2 where I was managing director. They're one of the larger market makers in the space and electronic OTC desks. Then I went to Elwood, which is Brevin Howard's crypto trading arm, and joined Kraken Futures last year. So I'm the head of business development here and yeah, just work on the future side of the business.
Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. So as I mentioned, Trashdog and Anon have been in our beta group for years and is some of the top traders, not only in beta, but market making and bit rage and all the Gunbot products. They know it very well. So Trashdog, give us a little feel for what you bring to the space.
I have been working with Gunbot since around 2017, so the better part of 3 years now. I got involved from humble beginnings, but very quickly found myself helping out with the testing side of things. And since then, I have been heavily involved with beta testing, testing and developing of new products, bug fixing, and helping Gunthar out with a whole range of projects that he's had going on for the last couple of years.
Excellent. Anon, you've been around for a long time too. So tell us how you got into this and what your passions are with the bot.
Yeah, I'm interested in crypto since it's very early days, since 2011, I think. So I passed maybe 3 bubbles until now. But I got interested in algorithmic trading since 2016. Then I discovered Gunbot. I was maybe among the first users there. So I liked the concept of community who is developing strategies, debugging, beta testing everything. So, and of course, rapid development of Gunbot itself. So here I am right now, beta testing, trading, and I like this community very much.
Absolutely. I would have to say the community is the strongest part of Gunbot. And I'll do my intro. I am Professor Wally. I run a education and training service called Gunbot University. Like the internet was in the early 90s, email was hard. There was no web. There was no Facebook. And the only people who got to use email were people who could understand Elm and Pine and actual raw UCP, and all those things just were turnoffs to most people. Bot trading and crypto recently had this kind of birth where the people who are willing to go through the pain and learn something hard usually get a little bit of a better reward. And then the things get a little easy, and then everybody and their mother has a bot, and then the bots have to really change a lot. So like Trashdog, I joined Gunbot in 2017. Was one of the first 200 users. I think all 3 of us were, and then now there's 6,000 users or something, 5,000 or 6,000 users, and the crypto market keeps joining. And so at Gunbot University, we like to help people along. We have virtual private servers hosting Gunbot, and we work a lot with Gunthar. So I'll do a little intro of Gunthar since he's not here. Gunthar De Niro is the author of Gunbot, and you can go look and see some of how he started the bot, how he started noticing the Bollinger Bands when the price would go and hit one of the bands. It was kind of a signal that it would drop on the top band, and then when it would hit the bottom band, that was kind of a signal that it would come up. And he said, "Hey, that could be a bot." And it has gone a million times more complex and more capable since then. And that is, back to the community. We've got a Telegram group and our forums that are just extremely robust and raw. They're just, hey, all sorts of diverse people, from the brand new, please help me trade, to experienced professional traders who just need an extension or a tool of their own strategies. So, we welcome all in between. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, because I know Kevin probably has some things he'd like to share about Kraken Futures, about what makes them different and what makes futures different. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, sure. So at a very high level, there's sort of three ways to trade crypto today. There's spot, margin, and futures. There's also options, but that's a little bit more complicated and sort of out of scope for right now. In spot markets, you are exchanging one asset for another. When you're trading margin, you're actually you're trading on a spot market, but you're borrowing capital from the exchange and you're paying interest on the borrowed value. It usually gives you sort of 2 to 5x leverage. And with futures, you're buying contracts. So the contracts represent the asset, for example, Bitcoin. And that allows you to trade with up to 50x leverage on Kraken Futures. Some exchanges can go a little bit higher than that still. So we specialize in futures trading. We are the only regulated futures exchange, I guess, other than the CME. And we're entirely based in London. So we started out originally as crypto facilities. Kraken bought the business early last year, and it became Kraken Futures. Over the course of the past year, our volumes grew about 15x. We've had sort of tens of thousands of people sign up for the platform. And we've got, last night, I think it was the big market move, so if we watch this at a later date, last night was that big sort of 30, 40, 50% sell-off. We hit our all-time high volume of $515 million, and the platform ran smoothly. So we're very proud of the infrastructure and really appreciate that traders choose to work with us.
Cool. And I think the spot, like, I traded crypto for years and didn't even know it was called spot trading.
Maybe that's what I call
that's
it.
How, well, no, but that's what it's called. And then the more I learned about actual trading from real traders, not just, I started as a hobbyist. I never did financials, this or that. I had to learn what wicks were. I had to learn all the basics. And then I found out, oh, well, what you're doing is spot trading. And it was that disconnected from really understanding what was going on. But the bot was doing great. I mean, I had years of 100,000 trades and lots of success, and then someone tells me it's spot trading, and then futures comes along. It's like, what is this? I've heard of stock market futures, and what is it, the sugar or whatever. You can do futures on anything. And so I think a lot of people just wonder, okay, yes, you can tell me all about what futures is, but most people want to walk away with, how do I make money, right? And I know Kraken has to be careful about answering any kind of question that says, how do I make money? So how do you handle that kind of question where someone comes in with their greed hat on, wanting to, they're drooling a little bit, they're saying, I want to get in on this. How do you set their expectations?
Yeah, so if you are moving over so I think what's interesting about the crypto markets is, for a lot of people that trade crypto, from what I can tell, at least in Twitter and in talking with people, it is more or less the first market they've traded in any real way. So it's not a lot of traditional bank FX people. It's more people that are learning as they go in crypto. So a lot of people migrate from spot to margin over to futures as their sort of learning continues to evolve. In terms of how do you make money on futures, I think the qualification you have to put forward is it's just as easy to lose the money as it is to make it. So when you trade with leverage, what it will do is it'll magnify your gains and your losses. So for example, a 10% move in the price, let's say you're trading with 10x leverage, a 10% price move will result in either a 100% gain, so you'll double your money, or you'll go to zero. It'll be a 100% loss. And it's very, very important to understand that the leverage cuts both ways. And you have to go into it knowing how that works and how to account for it. I think a lot of the users in futures actually tend to be operating businesses. So there are quite a lot of traders that will trade different strategies and do it in a more capital efficient manner than on spot. There's also quite a lot of operating businesses. So OTC desks, brokerages, people that have cash flows in Bitcoin for short periods of time. Futures are a very efficient way for them to hedge that exposure without tying up as much capital, because they can use leverage, but they know exactly what they're doing when they use leverage.
So, Trashdog, what would you say on that? The same vein of spot versus futures. What someone might need to know, but when they're getting into futures.
Literally, just touching on some of the points beforehand, was that with spot, it is a case of trading one asset for another. So in the event that you turn around and do actually have a bad trade, you're still left holding an asset. But on futures, it does. There is a lot more magnification when it comes to risk versus reward, because, like Kevin did say, yeah, sure, you can turn around and make a good buck, but the problem is if you end up with a bad trade and you don't have proper exit strategy for a bad trade, whether you use stops or anything else like that, you can lose your entire position. So you'll end up with nothing. You'll have nothing left in your hands. So a lot of the times when it comes to setting people's expectations when they move across from spot to margin is, you're trading on a new platform. So you've got to start small and actually have your exit strategies for a bad trade. Because if you don't have those, then you're going to run into all sorts of strife.
Anon, what do you say on that?
Yeah, as already mentioned, leverage in futures market are double-edged sword. It can magnify your gains and also make losses much more. And once you get liquidated, everything is gone. But the good thing with futures is most of platforms have test nets. So that's like identical website where you can test your strategies and learn how everything works with testnet bitcoins.
Yes, we have a conformance testnet for the API, and we also have a demo-futures.kraken.com. We can put the links up afterwards, where it is the live website. It's just got sort of fake market makers in there, so you can actually trade. You can see how things will respond to different circumstances. It's instant to create an account. Is it okay if I ask a question of you guys?
Yeah, sure.
We talked a little bit about you have to be very careful. Trashdog, you referenced, you have to be very careful about how you set your stops. Can you trade more or less the same strategies on spot as futures, just with different tolerances, or do you actually run entirely different strategies on the two markets?
You can run. It's actually probably one of the core principles that sort of people have struggle with when they get into spot and then they move into margin. Retail traders and stuff like that, is that they don't plan their stops properly on spot anyway. So when it comes to moving into futures, they run into the same errors that they have. But yeah, you can run very similar strategies between spot and between margin, especially if you're using like stop loss strategies. If you're using like a double up, DCA strategy, martingale type, that can get you into a lot more trouble when it comes to trading on margin. So yeah, that's usually one that you really need to be careful of if you're trying to move across from spot to margin and you're using like a DCA strategy.
What is a double up DCA strategy? I've never heard that before.
Sorry, double up is actually probably one of the settings, one of the strategies inside Gunbot itself. But DCA is dollar cost averaging.
Yeah.
So in the event that you turn around and you open up a position, you say you turn around and buy 10 contracts, and the price drops. Then all of a sudden you go, okay, so I'm going to turn around and buy 20 contracts, buy another 10. So now you have 20 contracts. And that changes your average bought price for how many contracts you have. But then the price drops some more, and you go 20 to 40, 40 to 80, and then 80 to 160. The problem is on spot, if you run out of funds and you can't do your strategy anymore and you can't sell for a profit, you're left holding a really heavy bag. On margin, on futures, if you try that and you don't understand your liquidation prices and your mark prices and stuff like that, you literally can throw away, instead of just throwing away a $10 trade, you can end up throwing away half your account. Yeah, because if the price keeps falling, whatever you put in on futures, you will lose. So, when it comes to trading with stop limits, you can run similar strategies. If you're running with a dollar cost averaging type strategy, you've got to be very careful. You can't do the same thing on both.
Cool, thank you. What's an example of a stop limit strategy? Either one of you guys.
So I can talk about that a little bit. When I started, I was all double up, and I was so against stops because basically, you have to decide to enter a trade. You can do it manually, or the bot can do it based on strategies you select, and then you need to specify when you exit the trade. And to me, as soon as you buy, you have a bag. That's what you have, and that bag is, I've taken my Bitcoin, I bought some Litecoin. Now I've got a Litecoin bag. And Gunbot's job, depending on what you're trying to do, if you're going long or short, is it tries to sell that Litecoin back for Bitcoin for more money. And there's lots of strategies you can do. But when it comes to bag management, especially in hugely volatile markets, a descending bear market, you're going to care about bags a lot more than if it's bullish, because you don't care about your bags because you're making money. And there are 5 ways to handle bags. I mean, one, you can just wait it out and, just wait until it sells for profit because, hey, crypto's new. It's going to rise someday. Some people have that idea. The second way is to sell it at a loss. So in Gunbot, what Gunbot calls a stop limit is, it's monitoring your position every so often, depending on what Kraken allows us with the API or any other exchange. And so it might say, you might have a threshold of 3%. If the price right now in the order book says I can sell this for X amount, and that is more than a 3% loss, just cut my losses and get rid of it. And to me, that was so antithetical to my hopes and dreams of crypto going 10x in the next year. It's like, why would I ever sell anything that's going to be so important next year? And it did well in 2017. And then, starting in 2018, it didn't do so well. And so stop is, the second way to handle bags. Anon, what thoughts do you have on stop limits and really risk management?
Yeah, risk management is very important with any kind of strategy, because you need to have a clear plan. When do you want to enter? Why are you entering that position? And what's your exit plan? When you want to take profit, or what you're going to do when things go wrong. So stop loss is just one of preferences, personal preferences. What traders can do based on strategy they are using.
So Kevin, I have some thoughts on stops with exchanges, and maybe I'm not going to say offensive, but it's going to be something that a lot of traders think about, and that's who has visibility at the exchange about the order book and people's stops, which are not on the order book. And one reason I bring it up is because Gunbot, given that it's off net, so to speak, it's sitting in a VPS or sitting in our house, regularly hitting the exchange every 20 seconds, saying, okay, what's it at now? And then the trigger, the response, is sitting at my desk, not sitting as a stop order on the order book. And so, crypto is not your keys, not your coins. Don't trust anybody. We're supposed to be autonomous, those kinds of things. And one of the things Gunbot spoke to me about was I get to control my stop, not an order on the book. What would Kraken Futures say about visibility into the order book to stop manipulation and whales, and how do you address those kinds of things?
Yeah, so the operations team internally here obviously has visibility if they need it for any number of reasons, but we don't have any internal trading desk. So there's no internal market maker, there's no internal trading desk that would have any access to that information whatsoever. So you can trade here knowing that nobody has better quality information than you do.
That's really helpful, because I know it's a concern. It's a concern for people who have spent time trading and then all of a sudden get liquidated on an exchange where all of a sudden, where did that come from? How do they know my stop? The stop hunting, there's a phrase, right? Whales go shark hunting and sharks go stop hunting. So it's definitely a concern.
Yeah, we don't take part in any of that. We always try to do the right thing by our clients. So that goes a little bit to how we handle the liquidation. So most of the other firms will liquidate the position, and if they can close the position out in the order book, they will take the proceeds of that trade. So basically what happens is you hit your maintenance margin, which could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%, depending on how large your position is. And when you hit that limit, the exchange will try to close your position out. And they'll try to do it in their own order book. We do that as well. The difference is if you get liquidated on most other exchanges, they'll take the proceeds of that trade, because the majority of liquidations do get cleared in the order book. And they'll put that into what's called an insurance fund. And you see them quite publicly talk about that. It is a little bit of a misalignment of incentives for two reasons. One is that insurance fund is actually just an asset of the exchange. It doesn't belong to the traders in any way. It sits on the exchange's balance sheet, and they can, in theory, do whatever they want with it. And the second one is that the people who pay into the insurance fund aren't necessarily the people who benefit from it. So the people that benefit from having the insurance fund are actually the people that tend to be profitable on the exchange, because in the event of too many liquidations going through, an exchange would have to go to what's called auto deleveraging, where they start taking away the profitable positions to balance the book back out. So we looked at that and we said that's probably not the fairest way to handle it for our traders. So in keeping with our desire to do the right thing by our clients, when we liquidate a position, we first try to close out the position in our order book. So we'll put in an immediate or cancel at the 0 equity value. And then if there are proceeds of that trade, and the vast majority of liquidations on our platform, there are some proceeds of the trade, that proceeds gets handed back to the trader. So most people that get liquidated on the platform in normal circumstances will actually receive some of their maintenance margin back. It's only when there's very, very sharp moves like last night that the order book can't take it. Then it gets handed off to what's called a liquidation assignment program, or a position assignment system, I think is the technical term. And that's where we hand the position and the associated maintenance margin to a number of market makers. So anyone everything we do is always available to everybody. So anybody, anywhere on our platform can participate in it. It's in your settings. You can sign up for this program, and you can also receive these assigned positions. When I joined, I couldn't figure out why you'd want to receive that, because it's obviously a bad trade if it's getting liquidated. But the way it works is you receive the position. So let's say a $1 million long position in Bitcoin, and you also receive the maintenance margin that goes along with that. So you get handed the position with $20,000, in that case, 2% maintenance margin. And if you're able to hedge that position somewhere else, or if you're able to work that position out in a more sort of orderly fashion in our order book, you keep the proceeds of that trade. So for example, if we look at Bitcoin liquidations on Kraken Futures since about March last year, for the past year or so, the vast majority of them, the maintenance margin, some of it was returned to the original trader. When the position was handed off, it was handed off on average at a 1.91% better than market price. So if you're able to hedge that position quickly, you're able to lock in on average a 1.9% gain each time. So the trading firms and the traders that participate in this tend to be people that are trading algorithmically, because you'll just get assigned the position. You don't know when it's coming. They tend to be people connected to multiple exchanges, but they tend to be very, very happy with the program because it can be very, very profitable once it's up and running for you. Sorry, it's a very long answer to why do we do the right things by our clients. But
no, I think what you just went over is gold to most people who actually care about futures trading. But one thing I want to mention, you said, like we had last night. For those watching this, we're recording this on Friday, March 13th, 2020. And Bitcoin has had a more than 50% correction from a month ago. And we're trading in the 5,000s. We dipped into the 4,000s overnight. And when we say overnight, you know, we're all over the world. Some of us are in US, some of us are in Europe, some of us are Australia, and you know, all over the world. Gunbot users are truly a global community. So we have all bled together and we've all rejoiced together. So
it literally has dropped a few thousand in a 24-hour period, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And so, you know, people, you know, good or bad, that brings visibility to trading. That brings visibility to manipulation. That brings, I mean, sometimes, you know, the crypto Twitter can go crazy with, oh, well, why did exchange X have maintenance right when all this stuff was happening? And you know, was it really maintenance or was it not? So there's no shortage of drama in this industry, especially with the order books as thin as they are. So I wanted to ask Kevin, what else would you have us understand about order books and this liquidation engine? I mean, you went into some really good detail, but in terms of, you know, what should a botter know about that versus a retail trader who's just using the web interface and click, click, click?
In terms of the liquidation engine itself, or
well, so you know, in general, I think a lot of people don't understand that Kraken Futures is a different entity, a different order book. You know, it's not the same funding accounts. So even some basics from there, and then you know, what recommendations you might have for people to understand, not just the safety thing that we already covered, but also, you know, is a futures order book different than a spot trading order book? I mean, are there other basics that we assume that maybe a lot of people don't know?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So futures will always trade on a separate order book from spot. And that's because you're trading contracts as opposed to an asset. So for Kraken clients, so anybody that's KYC'd at Kraken and non-US, so we don't accept US clients, but if you are a non-US and KYC'd client at Kraken, there's also a couple other countries that we don't accept, but they tend to be the more commonly not accepted countries. You automatically have an account on Kraken Futures. So there'll be a button on your accounts page where it will say launch futures. You'll go through a few questions, but you're able to start right away. You actually can margin your Kraken Futures account from Kraken Spot. So the transfers between Spot and Futures take about 1 or 2 minutes. It's actually, the money never actually leaves Kraken cold storage. So you deposit your funds into Kraken. It's a ledger entry. It's a cryptographically secured ledger entry between the two entities. So that you then margin your Kraken Futures account, but your money still sits with Kraken cold storage. You're allowed to trade on Kraken Futures. We have separate order books from the spot markets. And when you're done trading, you can take your profits and put it right back into Kraken Spot, withdraw it, or trade it back into dollars and withdraw it through the Kraken rails. So one of the main things people tell us they like about Kraken Futures is that it's the only futures exchange with high quality fiat rails directly attached to the exchange. So you can do SEPA transfer in, flip to Bitcoin, trade on Kraken Futures, and withdraw your money, all without the money never actually leaving the same house. In terms of things that we do, we always try to do things right by our clients. So a lot of exchanges say it, but we make sure that everything we do is accessible for everybody and universal. So our fees that are published are the fees that everybody has. There are no side deals. Nobody gets better fees than you. The latency, for example, we tell everyone where our servers are. It's AWS, Dublin. We tell you everybody how to whitelist your IP addresses so you can get the best quality latency connection. All of our revenue share programs it's universally available. You automatically participate in it the second you start trading. Liquidation assignment program, it's not just like we do deals with the big market makers. Anybody, anywhere on earth can plug right into that and start trading with exactly the same limits. So that's one of the reasons we're really excited to support the bot trading community, because we see this as, we really like to think that it's one of, if not potentially the only, truly level playing field in crypto, where everything you see is exactly what you get. There's no side deals. Nobody has structural advantage. Nobody internally can see the books. You are going head to head against big trading firms, but you're at least going head to head on equal footing with them.
That is actually probably one of the feedbacks that we sort of do get a lot from the community at the moment, is the difference that Kraken Futures actually has against other competitors in the market. So you touched on the liquidation engine. Again, people that have actually suffered liquidations before, and afraid of them because of their competitors, when they go over to Kraken and actually have gone through that experience there through a bad trade, already they're singing praises because their experience that they've had is so much better than what they've had beforehand. Connections, security, all those sort of bits and pieces. A lot of the feedback from the community at the moment is a vastly superior trading experience when they're actually on Kraken Futures.
That's very generous of you. And it is probably also worth mentioning, we are a small team. Kraken is a huge company, like 800 people. We work very, very closely with the Kraken team, and their customer support handles quite a lot of the support tickets for us, but they have fully trained futures experts that we talk to all day, every day. But a lot of the support you'll see in the Telegram group and the actual support that gets done for the customers happens just here in the office. It's me, it's Gary, it's Aaron, it's Connor. There's just a few people, and you'll work with us directly on this. Thankfully, the exchange is stable enough that we don't need 200 or 300 people to do customer support. We tend to have, touch wood, few enough issues that only a few people can personally provide the support.
Wow, that's good. And as you mentioned before, with everybody can. Sorry.
I'd say, the worldwide delay, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, when Kevin mentioned beforehand about the participation and a lot of the programs for rebates and everything else like that, there's members of the Gunbot community that are actually, sharing around screenshots of emails that they've received saying, congratulations, thank you very much for your participation. Here's your share of the, here's your share of the contribution. You get a little bit extra money in your account. So, yeah, it's seen throughout the community when they participate in these programs that Kevin was talking about.
It's really nice.
Yeah, and I think that in everything in life, and we go over some of this on the onboarding piece at Gunbot University, and that is there's trilemmas in everything. There's a trade-off everywhere, and the one most people can understand is good, fast, cheap. Pick two, and if you're picking two at the exclusion of the third. Bitcoin versus Ethereum or versus any other crypto, there's trade-offs. There's speed versus security versus value. And for trading, and we talked about this in the Ask Me Anything Telegram session that we had a couple days ago, Kraken is legit. It follows the regulations. It has this stability that other people don't have. But the GUI isn't as good, and the API might bark at us if we go a little too fast. So we have all these good things that a lot of the other exchanges don't have at the expense and at the natural expense of having to compromise in some other things. And so like Trashdog, it's like, the feedback is we know what Kraken's really good at. And when legit traders want to be on legit order books doing legit activity, there's got to be some trade-off there.
If I could jump in on one thing though, so Kraken Spot does have limits on the API capability or the capacity, and I know they're working very, very hard to increase those capacities. But on the futures side, we don't really have any issues with the capacity of the API. So we traded, you referenced that 50% price move last night. The API, I don't think had any downtime through the entire evening, London time. We can set, and this applies for the biggest trading firms, but also for any individual that wants it as well. We can set your rate limits more or less as high as you'd like them. So we ask that you try to batch the orders just to lower the overall strain on the system. But assuming you're batching your orders, just put a support ticket in and say, I'd like you to increase my rate limit. Usually do it within a few hours. If you put it in the Telegram chat and catch one of the when me or Gary, when we're at our computer, it can usually get done sometimes immediately. So we will give you guys the same quality API, rate limiting, and support that the biggest trading firms in the world get. Yeah, so it's yeah.
I know.
It's
I
very-
think Anon said something. Sorry,
Yeah.
I know Anon said something and they asked me anything specifically about the IP whitelisting.
Yeah.
So Anon, did you have some revelation that we all shared about what IP whitelisting gets you with Kraken?
Well, API whitelisting on Kraken is giving you ability to bypass Cloudflare
Yeah.
DDoS protection. Yeah. So, but for a very long time, I was thinking that it's actually IP restriction. So you can use your API keys from only one location, from your whitelisted IP address. So there is like that's one of the features I would like to see first on the exchange, and Kevin already mentioned it's going to be implemented very soon.
Yeah, I know Gary took
Yeah.
it down, and we'll be sharing it with the team. And yeah, if I could ask a
I
question,
have to stress that one more time. So before we get to that, for anyone watching this who uses Kraken Futures or Gunbot, or better yet, both together, what he just covered about bypassing Cloudflare, if you don't know what that means, just know it supercharges your access to the order book. And I'm telling you, with automated trading,
Oh, it's so
access and
important.
latency is
It's
key.
important. Yeah.
It's almost the most important thing, especially in a highly volatile, fast-moving market. You want to be your Gunbot as close to the exchange as possible, and you want to be able to get there, find information, come back, make a decision, and go back and make the trade. If you are coming in, like say, they're saying their servers are in Dublin. If you've got a bot in San Francisco and you are trying to go all the way to Dublin through Cloudflare, who then has to rate limit, distribute, and then reconnect your connection to Dublin, it's going to take a second and a half for that to happen, and then come back, and then you make a decision, then you go make your order or your stop, and your order book is out of date. So you're not going to be able to make that order unless you do a market order. And so this is so important. I got to say thank you, Kraken Futures, for giving us the ability to be a more highly aware trader so that we can make those advantages for ourselves.
Sometimes the market will only give you, 10 to 15 seconds to make a decision and actually close out a trade. And if all of a sudden it's taken you, 45, 50 seconds to get a response from the exchanges going through Cloudflare, yeah, you've missed your opportunity. And then all of a sudden the profitable trade turns into one that closes out for a stop loss. So having a quick connection to an exchange is quite important.
If I could ask you guys a question, I'd love to know a little bit more about. So let's say you always hear these people in sort of Twitter and the popular crypto sphere talking about the institutions are coming, the institutions are coming, and you guys are on the front lines of trading every single day across the biggest exchanges in the world. Have you noticed the market the dynamics have changed at all or evolved in the last, call it 2 years or something, as these institutions supposedly have been arriving? Or is it more or less the same as it always was?
Oh, no, personally for myself, I have, trading over the last couple of years, there definitely has been a huge shift in terms of, volume and also volatility, inside the crypto space, working on, a few of the exchanges. I still believe, though, that the market itself or that the whole environment does have a lot more maturing to go yet. So, I mean, seeing the 50% move like we did last night, or versus it's not abnormal to see it's not abnormal to turn around and see a price shift of 10 to 20% in like 5 minutes time. Even though that there's a lot more volatility and a lot more volume, I still think it has. I still think it has a long way to go.
Anon, what do you think?
Yeah, volume is definitely increasing. last maybe few months because of maybe bull market. But for me personally, it's hard to distinguish. Is that maybe more retail customers coming on board, or actually institutional investors? But we hear from many institutional companies, yeah, we are joining to crypto. We will implement parts of our business on blockchain, that kind of stuff. But I don't think they are really impacting on price.
I think it comes down to on-ramps. The retail traders had, early on, had at least a little bit of an on-ramp, and there was zero on-ramp for institutions. I mean, even, Jamie Dimon saying, if anybody trades, I'm going to fire you type thing. I mean, those weren't his exact words, but it was pretty much the spirit. And the risk tolerance of an individual is vastly different than the risk tolerance of a business. So, since 2013, 2015, then 2017, the boom. I mean, even since 2017, I've personally consulted hedge funds of how they could use Gunbot because they are institutions. They are trying to get here. But with so many blocks in place that are slowly coming down, the instruments that they have are CME futures, CBOE futures, GBTC, ETHE, Grayscale, the OTC desks. All of the OTC desks and the Grayscales of the world have all reported vastly improved volume. And that doesn't hit the order book, right? So I think that helps us understand from a non-anecdotal stance what's going on.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'd also love to know. So we in Kraken Futures, a lot of our clients are probably not trading with bots today, but I think they're probably very interested in learning a little bit more about, one, what can a bot do for them, specifically what can Gunbot do for them as a trader, and two, what are some of the things that they should have in mind before they start trading with a bot. So I don't know if it's like challenges, as I'd say, but does it require technical understanding to do it, or are we looking at 20 minutes of setup time, or is it put aside 3 days on your calendar? What are the types of things people should think about if they are interested in dabbling with a bot or Gunbot?
I have a couple things on that. Oh, go ahead, Trash.
Yeah, sorry, I just yeah.
That's all right. When it comes to actually setting up a bot, I bet you this is probably going to be one of the points that Wally's going to talk about, is actually understanding where your bot's located in comparison to where the exchange is located, so you sort of get the best connection that you have, because you really don't want information to be old by the time the bot actually receives it. Setting it up actually really doesn't take too long. But one of the biggest challenges about using a bot is actually understanding your risk management when it comes to trading. There's too many people that sort of get into it, and they expect for it to trade, but they wanted to buy, they wanted to sell, but they actually don't know, they don't have any concept of risk management and how they're going to exit out of a bad trade. So that'll probably be one of the first key things that people need to be aware of when they get into automated trading, personally.
Anon?
Well, when I was first starting using Gunbot, I was trading now and then also before, but I had no idea about indicators and that kind of stuff. So when I first started using Gunbot, I found there are preset strategies, and there is so much things you can learn while setting up a bot first time, and how market works. And I think the biggest challenge for new users is to decide what strategy would work for them, good. So they can't decide maybe to use Bollinger Bands or Emma or some of preset strategies. But it's easy once you can see some examples to set it up. You can spend configuring your bot maybe even 20 minutes or 3 days. It depends what you want.
Cool.
Yeah, and Kevin, I heard you basically ask two things. You know, what would a current trader get out of using a bot?
Mhm.
And then the second one is, you know, how easy to set up. So on the first one, the primary thing that a current either casual or professional trader could use Gunbot for is to let them be able to sleep. Because if you're addicted to your portfolio and your order book and you're stressing your whole life over what's happening in the next 5 minutes of the next hour, oh my goodness, look what's happened. If you're stressing out about that, it's not good for you physically, it's not good for you mentally. And basically Gunbot is an extension of your already established strategy so that you can have it buy when you think it should buy based on what you've personally backtested. Hopefully you've done something like that. Not everybody does. And then it can handle the stops and the sells trailing up so that you don't miss the big spike. So first one is peace of mind. They can go to sleep. They can be with their family. They can follow their passions, even if that passion is crypto. Gunbot helps you do that. The second part is how easy is it to set up. Now, Trash and Anon and I have been here since 2017 when it was not easy. It was
version 3.3.2.
Yes, and even before that, it was. I mean, some people took 2 to 3 weeks to set up the bot because they didn't understand command line switches. They didn't understand how it had to run. They didn't understand the network connections it did. I mean, just even that kind of thing. And actually, that's how Gunbot University came about. Is people just kept asking, "Can you help me?" And you know, all of us were volunteering, 40, 50 hours a week in the Telegram chat. I got to the point where, no, I can't help you anymore after about 7 or 8 months. And someone said, I'll pay you to help me. And that's what Gunbot University came from, because, we can get a bot running in a day. And it's like, yes, we can do it, but I just can't stretch myself to 1,000 people. So today, the bot is literally 100 times easier to use, 100 times easier to install. It's still not a wizard. And I have one comment on that, and that is Gunbot is more like a chainsaw, and it can help you build a house, and it can also chop off your arm. And you're going to want some training before you start using that chainsaw, because you can't build a house without the chainsaw. You need something like this if you're going to be doing serious trading.
Yep.
But you don't want to just assume that zero effort on configuration will result in profits that you like. There is a direct correlation between what you put into the bot in terms of time. If you put 5 minutes a day into the bot, you'll get 5 minutes of profit. If you put an hour a day into the bot, you'll get an hour profit. Now there's a diminishing return after a certain amount of time, but that's another reason why GBU exists. We can host your bot. We get it up same day, and you don't have to worry about install or putting it in the right place. And that's kind of my little shill for the day. Gunbot needs to just work, and just have it running.
New users of Gunbot, whether they're existing traders or new traders, really do need to spend some time reading the wiki, reading the instruction manual for the actual bot, so they could turn around and understand the strategies and the settings behind those strategies in the bot, and how they do, how they expect it to actually work.
Cool, that's good to know.
Mm.
I guess the other thing would be to set expectations. There's bots or tools, and you'll hear on YouTubes or podcasts saying, "Oh, the bots are, all the trading is bots and manipulation is done by the bots." And the bot does whatever you tell it to. So a good trader can use a bot, a bad trader can use a bot, and a malicious trader can use a bot. It doesn't really matter. And so the expectations going in should be, this isn't a magic internet money printer. This is an extension of what you want it to do. So it's automated. If you put in a bad strategy, it'll automate your bad strategy. And you don't want that.
Cool. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Funnily enough, that's actually probably one of the reasons why I got into bot trading to begin with myself. Is I had a on ramp into crypto, to cut a long story short, and then I found myself addicted to, not addicted, but spending a vast amount of time watching order books and making trades and stuff like that. And then eventually I was just like, you know what I need to do? I need to reclaim back a couple of hours. I need something that's going to help me make these trades. So I started venturing out, and I found myself Gunbot. I got myself into it, and I was just like, beauty, this is going to help me save some time. And it kind of did. But then I got into the actual beta testing side of things and helping with, bug fixing and development. And I think I've spent a lot more time doing that than what I've ever done trading.
You know more about that bot than anybody, I think. I mean, you're in the trenches has been fantastic, both of you.
Yeah, I definitely have spent a fair bit of time, helping Gunthar out with isolating issues, or even not even just helping Gunthar, but helping clients out as well with problems that they may have, and isolating the difference between, what may just be a bad setting versus an actual problem with the bot. And that's kind of one of the things that has kept me involved with Gunbot over the years. And one of the things that I'm over the moon about is literally the commitment that the developers actually have in the back end to the software itself, and the amount of time that actually gets put in place. So much time actually gets put into the community, and trying to identify bugs and developing new strategies and everything else like that. Just over the years, I just can't fault the effort that's been put into it.
That's one of the things I think is coolest about crypto, and what originally got me into the ecosystem is that it's like there are these pockets of like Gunbot is a really good example, where there's like very passionate people working on something, and it can be really fun to spend time doing it. Like the one I really like is like I mine cryptocurrency for fun. I built my own rig. I have an operating system that I run on it, and I just try to mine different tokens that I'm interested in. Like Grin is the one I'm doing lately. But the level of support and like commitment from the community, you get to work with the founders directly on fairly bleeding edge stuff. Like it's brand new, and they're figuring out as they go as well. And that's one of my favorite things about crypto. That wasn't a question, but like it's exciting to hear you guys talk about like the community, and that you get to work right with the people building it, because it's one of the things that's very exciting and can get lost when we talk about billions of dollars of open interest wiped off, and everybody's worried about cascading liquidations and margin calls and this and that. It's actually really cool to be part of building something.
Well, I mean, community is Gunthar's number one thing, and he likes making money. Sure, he likes coding. He's become such a he's improved in so many ways in coding and understanding releases and things like that. But if you were to ask him, and he's put this out a couple times, that the community is the most important thing. I mean, he could have retired. He could have charged whatever he wanted for this bot, but he came out with a token not to make money, but to give people more of a community so that they can own their license, they can be more flexible. It's a license on the blockchain, which nobody really is doing, right? The more tokens you have, the more features you get in licensing. I mean, even we've just been talking about Gunbot, but we also have market maker portion of Gunbot. So Gunbot is for spot and futures and margin. Market maker is for dissecting that order book and filling the gaps between the asks and the bids, and helping to provide liquidity. And BitRage is Gunthar is the company, the LLC that basically runs all this stuff. BitRage is the arbitrage bot, which allows you to, instead of spot between two assets, you can arbitrage between three assets. So you take your Bitcoin to buy Litecoin, you take your Litecoin to buy Ethereum, and then you sell your Ethereum for more Bitcoin than what you started. And that is incredibly hard to do. But, so that's why those three different products, Gunbot, you can just buy. Market maker and BitRage, you have to earn through rank in tokens. And that speaks to this community. He's not just saying, here's the price, it's limited, and give me all your money. He's allowing the market to decide how, in not just pricing, but in these tokens, which benefits every user instead of just him. So that community is super important. I have to stress that.
It's really cool. I haven't seen a lot to indicate that Gunthar ever sleeps, though. He seems to be online at like weird hours. Yeah. You say he's in Italy, but he's online at like 2 in the morning every day.
Yeah,
A lot of us are.
We've kind of got a bit of a nickname for him now. For the ones that have been around for a couple of years, we've noticed exactly the same thing. We swear he's not actually human. He's probably we dub him Gunthar AI now. He may take a little bit of downtime to process, some of the day's codes and everything else like that, and clean out some caches and go through his reboot sequence. But yeah, his commitment, and the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because a lot of people that haven't got into bot trading beforehand, and I know this is one thing that I went through myself, is that you are now trusting a piece of software that somebody else has coded to manage or to have access and manage your money.
Yeah.
And because you're now, passing over that level of trust, one of the things that you want to look at when investing your time and money into a product is literally the frequency of the development and everything else like that, and the support and those sorts of bits and pieces. I mean, you don't want to step into and there's a lot of products out there. But you don't want to turn around and purchase a product that the last time it was updated was like 7 months ago, because then all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where there's nobody that's doing bug fixing, there's no new implementations or anything else like that. So it's quite an important feature or an important thing that people need to take into consideration when moving into using an automated trading tool.
Last question for me.
So you said managing the money. I want to be clear that Gunbot's managing your trades. It doesn't actually have access. Most of the time you create your API keys without withdrawal. So it's not actually managing the money. It's managing the trades that Gunbot can make. So that's not completely eliminating the risk, but it's not like it's withdrawing or doing anything like that.
Oh, you're Freudian slip on that one. It is managing the trades for you.
Yeah.
It's not like it actually takes the money off the exchange and goes buys your groceries or something like that and then puts the change back. No,
right.
It doesn't do something like that.
So Kevin, you said you had another question?
Just for fun, gut call, do you think we'll see Bitcoin over 20K this year? Gut call. I hate the price calls, but I'll give you an over-under, and you can take the over, the under on it.
I do, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer, but that's my gut.
I personally despite the events over the last 24 hours, I didn't think to begin with that it was going to go over 20K. I reckon we will see 5 digits again, but over 20, probably not. We're probably going to fall short at around the 17, 18K mark, give or take.
What do you think?
Anon, what
about you, Anon?
It's a difficult question. If someone asked me maybe 48 hours ago, do you think we will see 4,000 this year? I would say.
I would have said no.
No way, impossible. Yeah, so I think I can say same for 20K right now. So
I feel like I'm in that moment back in 2017 where the price was around 2,500, and then there was all this the Twitter and commotion and everything else going on, and people were saying, "Oh, it's going to be 20K," and I'm sitting there going, "No, mate, that's not going to happen." And lo and behold, all of a sudden it went to the moon, and away we go. So, like you said, if somebody said 48 hours ago, is it going to go back to 3K? I would have went, "Nope." Not today, it won't.
So Kevin, I'm going to ask you the same thing, but I am going to mention, 1, we have thin order books. 2, we've got a financial collapse going on. So when that starts to rebound, people are going to start putting money into crypto. 3, we've got an election coming up in the U.S. that's very contentious. We had Brexit going on. We've got a lot of unrest. And we have more and more awareness of the house of cards that the typical financial system is, you know, the modern economic theory. As more people understand what's going on there, I think more people are going to be willing to go in. And just remember, it doesn't take much money at all to raise the price.
Mhm.
Not at all. With these order books, less than 200 billion now in market cap, and $1.5 trillion was just announced today in the U.S. of another quantitative easing coming for the overnight market. So that's 1.5 trillion with a T, 1,500 billion, and all that money is going to go into loans, into people helping to refinance their homes, starting business. Trump announced 50 billion small business. I mean, people are going to be hedging their bets on the financial system more than before, and it doesn't take much for it to shoot up. So, Kevin, what do you think?
Sorry, Trashdog, go ahead, please.
Yeah,
I
no,
will
no,
answer, but I didn't want. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I literally just sort of wanted to swing back round to a question for you actually that was touched on in the AMA. So I wanted to sort of bring that back up again in relation to, because we've been talking a lot about you know, Gunbot and the community and stuff like that. But I actually wanted to touch back on what are your plans for the Kraken Futures exchange in the near future? It actually sounded like that you guys had some very interesting you know, things that are going on.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I'll answer the 20K question because I don't want to leave it hanging, and then I'll talk about. I appreciate
Oh,
your
yeah.
talk about futures. So I think I'm with Anon on that question. If you'd asked me 2 days ago, I would have said $10,000 plus or minus $2,000 is probably the fair price. It just seemed like that was kind of where it was happy. I never thought it would go to 5 or wherever we are right now. So it's hard to picture it going up to 20, but you never know. I think the bigger picture for me is that it's actually a generational change rather than necessarily some crisis-induced adoption. I think if you ask, I have asked, a lot of the people I have asked that are kind of under 35 tend to either have crypto or be quite comfortable with the idea of buying some, and the people that are under 30 tend to have only traded crypto. So a lot of like people in their 20s, I think, are learning how to buy assets from crypto. It's not like it was 15, 20 years ago where you start out with your few shares of Apple or whatever it is that you wanted to try to buy to gain exposure. So I think we'll see a generational shift of younger generations more and more being comfortable with this idea of digital money and investing in digital assets. So it might take a long time, I guess, is the punchline there. In terms of what's up next for the exchange, we had a back-end release queued up to go out yesterday. Thank God we didn't push that, because last thing you want is a back-end release going out when in the middle of that chaos. So we put it off until Monday. So unless the market's completely convulsed over the weekend, we'll be pushing a back-end update in the next few days. That should be out by the time this video sort of goes live. Next up after that will be sub-accounts. So the ability to create multiple accounts that are independent from one another. It'll be very helpful if you're running multiple trading strategies. So you margin the accounts separately, and you can run different strategies in different accounts, and you can create those directly from Kraken Futures. Looking ahead, we see our differentiator as an exchange being our regulated status. So it took a lot of work to get that, and the cost is that we have to move a little bit slower, in that we have to launch products with sort of regulator consent to some degree. But the benefit for our clients is that they know that we're a regulated exchange. They know that someone has looked at our operations. They know that there is some level of accountability, that you can go speak to a regulator if you feel like you've been actually wronged by the exchange. And there are human beings at the exchange that are liable for the exchange's actions. The other nice thing that comes with regulation is fiat. So our plans for the exchange are to launch fiat trading, fiat margin. We're hoping that will be ready to go over the summer. And cross margin is the other thing that we're working very hard on. So the ability to put in any token, trade any contract, and take your P&L in any other token. So you can put in Ethereum, trade Ripple, take your P&L in Bitcoin if you wish, if that's what you feel like doing that day. It's a relatively complex build, but the guys are pretty far along with it. And we're hoping that will come out sort of late summer if things continue to go well. So this year we see ourselves as focusing on fiat and cross margin as the two big differentiators.
Touched on a number of things there. And, you know, to go back to the AMA that we had in Telegram, one of the questions was from PIM, P-I-M.
Yep.
He he's one of the master dealers, and he totally runs the wiki. And I have to say a shout out to him for that, because before we had no documentation, and all we had was, what different dealers would do for their own customers. So thank you, Pam. And he specifically asked, Kraken Futures is regulated. What makes it different from other unregulated exchanges? And I think you touched on that. I appreciate that. And another question was about fiat and Forex. So when you talk about taking fiat pairs, is that touching on Forex type of trading that we might be able to do with Gunbot?
I think Kraken actually just launched for actual Forex trading on the spot side. On futures, the way it would work, or the way we are architecting it now, is that you could put in dollars, euros, or pounds to start with, but eventually, I think more or less any fiat currency, and use that as margin. And the reason that might be valuable for you is when you put in fiat currency as margin, your dollars and euros sit in an actual bank account where they are sort of hack remote, they're bankruptcy remote. We feel quite confident in Kraken's cold storage, but you are keeping crypto on a crypto exchange. This would allow you to put dollars into a regular bank account and use that for trading the regular futures contract. So we see a separate set of clients, we see that opening up a new segment of clients, of people that were interested in getting exposure to the price of cryptocurrency without necessarily wanting to hold the cryptocurrency itself. And right now, if you feel that way, you have very, very few options. You can buy GBTC, you can trade on the CME with very low leverage. So we think that might be a differentiator or something that's quite compelling for a segment of people. We're not sure how big it is, though, to be honest.
It definitely sounds like there's quite a lot of exciting development, heading along the way, especially the stuff that you touched on with, sub accounts and stuff like that. I do have a question in relation to that, though, especially when it comes to exchanges and APIs and, rate limiting. All the sub accounts obviously are running under the one account, and if a botter actually wants to separate their strategies and run a strategy against different accounts, how's the API rate limiting actually managed? Is it from the parent account itself, or would each sub account actually have its own set of limits?
Yeah, so the way it will work is the parent account will be the master account. So all of the sub accounts all the volume from the sub accounts will sub to the master account for the revenue share program. So you'll get paid out on your overall volume across all accounts. And things like API, but they will all have separate logins. So things like API rate limits can be managed at the sub account level. So we can increase those for you just as we do regularly. So just tell us you need the limits up by 3, 5x or whatever it is, and we should be able to just lift them across all the accounts for you.
Yeah, it's just one of the common things that we sort of struggle with botting or trying to run multiple strategies on the same exchange is literally API rate limiting. A lot of them actually manage your connections and all your inquiries on a parent account level. So it doesn't take much to turn around and all of a sudden the exchange is telling you back off. We can't give you information. So I was quite interested to see if that's going to be sub accounts are going to have their own level of their own API rate limiting.
Yeah, so we take a lot of pride in the quality of the back end, and we take a lot of pride in the fact that we can increase rate limits we haven't had anyone that has asked for rate limits that we couldn't deliver. So when people ask, we're able to deliver. And we will continue to do that. It's one of the big points of the back-end release is to continue to increase the scalability of the system so that we can continue to take on more people and let everybody trade the way they wish.
Yeah, because that's actually one of the questions.
Huge for Gunbot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, because it was one of the questions that sort of was, again, touched on in the AMA that we held in the Telegram recently is, do exchanges or do you guys actually like trading bots and support the trading software?
Yeah, we absolutely do. So we view trading bots as critical parts of the infrastructure of cryptocurrency today. It allows regular people to go head to head with big trading firms, to trade more intelligently. So we think there's a huge amount of advantages for the community of people using trading bots. That's also part of why we set our system up the way we do, where everything is accessible. Everybody has exactly the same terms. All the programs are universal. Everybody gets to have whitelisted APIs. Everybody can request API rate limit increases. We really try to keep it a level playing field so that when you show up with the bot and turn on the bot, you are not structurally disadvantaged against anybody else in the system.
I'm sure it
No,
doesn't.
that's
I'm sure it
really
doesn't
important.
hurt with the fee revenue as well. And it's always known that in a gold rush, the people who make money are the ones who sell the pickaxes, right? So the exchanges are the pickaxes in this example, and exchanges make money whether people lose or win. What I really like about what Kraken has on this legit side is the revenue share. So people who are providing liquidity, who are doing trading, because you don't offer a token like some of the other exchanges do. So I think the revenue share is your way of saying, hey, our interests are aligned, as you mentioned earlier, and someone who's using a bot is going to have generally more trading volume and be able to do things at night and when they're out at the movies with their family and things like that. So I think that helps a lot. I did have one other question from the AMA, unless Anon, you haven't spoken in a while. Do you have any points you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I like what was discussed about new feature of sub accounts. So I'm looking forward to so we can compare like 2 or 3 strategies at the same time. Usually we were doing it with 2 or 3 accounts when it was possible, but with the same account, sub accounts. I wanted to say it's much easier and transparent, and
Cool.
it's a huge shout out.
So the multiple account feature is really good, because I remember in 2017, and I was getting everywhere. I had a Bittrex account, I had a Binance account when they opened up, I had a Kraken account, I had Coinbase Pro or GDAX, I had a Bitfinex account, and then all of a sudden, Bittrex said, "Oh no, this was in August or so. Yeah, you guys can't have multiple accounts." It's like,
yeah, when you're comparing strategies, it's very important to compare it against the same market conditions, the same order book, and on the same exchange. Usually, because there are large differences between exchanges or even time frames when you are testing strategies.
Yeah, and then Poloniex said the same thing, but you could have, I think they called them linked accounts. But then Kraken, I emailed their support and said, hey, look, I've got 3 accounts with you right now because I need to be able to have more positions open, and I'm not trading with myself. I'm trading against the order book, and I still have printed on my wall, framed, the response from Kraken saying, yes, this is fine. We just have to know that it's you, for in case the regulatory agencies come to us. You can't use 3 different fake names. You have to be, if you're going to tier certify tier 1, 2, tier 2, 3. Now, as a U.S. citizen, I'm not allowed to play in the futures world. And so Alex in the AMA had said, do you have plans of expanding usability to U.S. customers? Like there's a futures competition going on right now with Gunbot, and they can't participate because they're American. So what is Kraken Futures official, or can you give an official response on how you might support and open up your market?
Yeah, so it's a top priority for the business, is to figure out how to be able to trade or take on U.S. individual trading clients and do it in a regulatory compliant manner. So it's a little bit of a complicated road to walk with American regulators of exactly how you do that properly for futures trading. But we're working very, very hard on it. I think I gave an over/under in the AMA, but I think it'll be measured in low single-digit years. I think is probably the best way to do it. It's not likely to happen this year, but it is kind of more broadly our top priority as a business is to figure out how to do that, but do it properly, because we don't want to do it, with the way some people have done it so far, shall we say. We want to be able to do it properly.
It'd be greatly appreciated.
It's not easy. So if you guys write your local congressman or something, because it's not easy for an exchange to enter the U.S. market. But we're trying very hard to figure out how to do it properly.
It's definitely gotten whittled down. There's very few spot markets that you can still do things, and it's still difficult to do your taxes. Just the crypto taxes itself are difficult to calculate. The the guidance from the IRS has been conflicting, and it's almost like they want the community to still be seen as shady or bending the rules. It's like, tell us the rules and we'll follow them, which is one reason I gravitate to Kraken so much, is because they allow me and my business to be legit with crypto trading.
Yeah, I think it's a huge regulatory burden, and the big ones like Kraken and Coinbase shoulder a big burden to be able to operate effectively and above board in the United States, and they both take that on, and they have the scale to do it, but it's a lot. It's a big operation to be able to do that properly. But should we do any like final closing thoughts or something, and then
I did want to mention a couple of the AMA. We could do just a fast lightning round. I can ask a question. You have like 30 seconds or so. Yuri in the AMA asked about your ROE. For people who don't know what ROE is, that's return on equity, and comparing your ROE values of the largest crypto futures margins, margin trader, BitMEX, and how they calculate theirs so that they can properly calculate their exit, what the reduction is, and the intervals. So how would you guys compare yourselves to kind of the standard that they've set?
We have now hit the limit of my ability to answer effectively.
Okay.
I would need to get Gary for that question, but I think if it's okay, let's leave that one. Maybe we'll leave that for a written follow-up, because I don't want to just pull him in for one very quick one. Otherwise, we have to do a whole introduction.
Sure.
But I appreciate the question.
We
have an answer, I just don't.
We can do this again with I think this was more of an intro to Gunbot and Kraken Futures and us as a community, and I think we could have a follow-up Ask Me Anything that digs into the deep dive technicals.
We'd love to do that. We can get Gary and Aaron to talk about the API, answer any questions about API connections, like the actual technical side of it as well.
I actually would like to see what sort of questions would come out of the community from from this little discussion. So it'll be rather interesting.
Yep. So I agree with you, Kevin. That I think this is a good time to wrap up. And so we'll start with Trashdog. What are your final closing thoughts, and what would you like people to leave with?
Final closing thoughts at 12:30 in the morning. No, I mean, look, I literally just want to say thank you, Kevin, for being with us here today and discussing a lot of things out of the AMA from the thing. A lot of the stuff that we touched on, like the liquidity engine and the API rate limiting, and the future roadmap for Kraken Futures, and the support that you guys have for bot trading has been quite informative this evening. So it's been great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
John, let's see you.
Yeah, this was very interesting today, and we touched many topics that people are really interesting, and cover some basics that would probably start interest with some people into crypto tradings and learning how futures work, and actually maybe bring on board to Gunbot and Kraken Futures.
Sweet. And I would just say, if you're curious, you can get started. We have, Gunbot offers, different licenses, starter for, one exchange with very simple beginner strategies. Everything's priced in Bitcoin, so it's on sale right now. That's for sure.
50% off.
Right. You can go to Gunthar. That's GUNTHY.org. Is the official place where you can learn a little bit more about what Gunbot does. We've got demo accounts that you can kind of watch. There's a list of resellers or master dealers. All three of us that are here can help you if you reach out to us directly or find us on the Telegram group. We can help you, size, figure out where you want. And at Gunbot University, we offer, training and virtual hosting. But I would say, get interested, learn about it, and make sure that you're safe when you get into some of the more risky pieces. But without risk, there's not as much reward. So I think it fits a certain demographic of people who are ready to get in. Kevin, you want to close this out?
Yeah, just want to say thank you very much to the three of you guys for taking the time to be with us here today, and to Gunthar and the team at Gunbot. It's been, on behalf of Kraken Futures, it's been absolutely fantastic working with you guys. We really enjoy engaging with the community. There are real people here at Kraken Futures. The office is quiet because of Corona right now, but there is actually usually a very full office right behind me. And we really, really appreciate that you guys take the time to trade with us and the feedback and the support. So we look forward to continuing to work with you guys. And yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. While you're stuck at home due to Corona, go ahead and trade crypto.
It's a good time to set up a bot.
It certainly is.
Thank you guys very much.
Well, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Be a student, not a follower. Gunbot University.